Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 673, written by StarCraft 1160, The Grid in the Sky. A couple years ago, I believe, maybe it was early last year, I was riding in the passenger seat of my car while my boyfriend drove. It was mid-morning, sunny, and not a cloud in the sky. Then it appeared. A grid suddenly appeared above my windshield. The best I can describe it is like a grid paper you'd use in math class, but all you could see were the multiple lines in black. Besides that, I could still see the sky and road around it. I even leaned forward in my seat to look up, and it went on just as far as I could see, like the world was in a grid paper. And just as suddenly as it appeared, it was gone. I'm going to say it stayed for maybe 3 to 5 seconds tops. I asked my boyfriend if he saw it, which he did not. Has anyone experienced anything like this? I think about it all the time since it happened. I can't explain it. Case notes for file 673, A Grid in the Sky. So this is the second grid story I've personally narrated, although I've read at least a dozen at this point. It's pretty common, although how common exactly is debatable. Still, I would say that it's one of those glitches that does reoccur quite often, enough that it's a pattern, and it shouldn't be dismissed. Now, it is interesting that your boyfriend didn't see it, while you did. So now this is another one of those glitches that is perception-based. Something in our minds has to be wired just right for us to be able to see this grid in the sky. It does strike as some sort of coordinate system, right? It would be a 2-coordinate system if it's a flat 2D plane. Still, it is an incomplete representation of our universe, which is in 3 dimensions as we perceive it. Well, 4 if you include time, but that's a side issue. In terms of physical location, where you could be in any given time, outside of time, it's 3 dimensions. So you would have a cube space grid instead of a flat plane that you'd see in the sky. Now, is this evidence of the simulation? I would chalk it up towards yes, even though it's an incomplete representation. It's not the full picture, and I don't know why some people are able to see it and others can't, but I would chalk this up as further evidence that we live in some sort of simulation, either as a video game or some sort of test. But this reality as we perceive it, let's just say that there's more to it than we can perceive easily. Let's go with that. Case file number 674, written by Shiny Pebble 77. Right or left? This happened about 8 years ago when I was 26. I used to cycle to and from where I was working. Before setting off home, I bundled up my jumper and clipped it onto the back of my bike, as I often did, and set off and reached a small junction that I was very familiar with. To the left was a flat path and led towards a pedestrianized area and a shop. To the right was steep and hilly and part of a busy bus route. I often chose to go right because I used to love racing down the hill and felt very in control and safe on my bike. What's more, I saw a colleague in that direction and wanted to say hi, bye as I went past, so I turned to go right. The next thing I knew, everything went very bright and I was dazzled and felt a jolt as I was thrown off my bike. As I sat up, barely injured, I realized that I was on the left of the junction on the pedestrian path. Someone asked if I was okay and I said I was fine and thanked them. After inspection, I realized that the sleeve of my jumper had fallen loose from its clip and had gotten caught in the bike chain which had thrown me off my bike. Yet, I was sure I had turned right. And if I had turned right, then my sleeve falling loose and falling off my bike would have been catastrophic, as I would have been hurtling down a hill with buses and cars. Another interesting thing is that since that event, my life changed significantly, mostly for the better. Things were not great for me at the time for various reasons, yet since then, it feels like I shifted and got another chance at life. I get chills thinking about it and sometimes can't stop myself from thinking about it. I want to share this because doing so might help make some sense of this extremely fortunate but bizarre experience. Case file number 675, written by Tjeetje. Yeah, it's definitely Lambik. This happened about 15 years ago, but we still talk about it and wonder what happened. It was New Year's Eve and we were with a group of friends. Some suggested playing Party & Co. For those who do not know the game, it's a board game where you play in teams and draw cards. With one category you have to draw, sing, create, etc. what's on the card, if I remember correctly. I'd never played the game before, and after that, and really did not know what the rules and the goal of the game was. Our friend said, "Just start, you'll figure it out while playing." So partners could not be in the same team. I was in the team that waited on their turn. It was my girlfriend's, now wife's, turn. She drew a card. She also had no idea what the game was. Looked at it, and without realizing, I said from across the room, "She's wondering how to portray Lambik, a famous but very random and old Belgian comic character." My wife looked at me annoyed, sighed, and put the card back. She drew a new card, and it was only then someone asked what was up. She said, "Well, he revealed what was on the card." Our friend said that's not possible, that he's across the room. They took the card and the assignment was exactly as I said. We all freaked out, and it still puzzles me how I knew exactly the text on the card without even knowing if it was even one of the assignments. And besides that, out of every person, object, or anything I chose, why was it Lambik? It was, like I said, very random and has no role or meaning in any of our lives. What made my brain say that name? Creepy File number 29, written by Cultural Note 6722. Something is off with this driver. It's 5 a.m. as I'm writing this, and it feels like a good time to get this one off my chest. A while back, I went on vacation to California. I was taking 2 to 3 Ubers per day, and usually made friendly small talk with the drivers. "Isn't California weather great? I can't believe the prices here," and so on. One driver picked me up, and by chance I'd asked him to take me to the In-N-Out a couple blocks from my hotel instead of the hotel itself. I was traveling alone. He asked me what I was doing in California. I told him I was on vacation. He asked me who I came with. This made me instantly feel on edge, like I should say, my boyfriend. It felt like he was trying to gauge if I was traveling alone. I said, family. He asked me where I was staying. I pretended I didn't hear him. He asked again and I said, a hotel. He asked if it was near where he was dropping me. I said, kinda. He asked how long I would be in town. Oh, you know, vacation length, not too long. I had no problems telling my drivers I was from out of town, but I hated the questions he was asking. They felt off. He wanted too much detail for small talk. He then started to text while driving. I was looking over his shoulder. The text was not in English. I couldn't tell what language it was, but I could see my pickup location typed out. After he dropped me off, I watched his car. He pulled around to the back of the parking lot and sat there. He didn't leave the car. I stayed at the In-N-Out for almost an hour. I considered calling another Uber and asked some random woman if they had a car and could drive me. Eventually, I walked a couple of blocks to my hotel. I pretended to talk on the phone the entire time. Maybe I was overreacting. The reason I walked back was because I convinced myself I was being judgmental and maybe he was just being friendly. But I had plenty of drivers on that trip with no interest in sticking around an hour after dropping me off or texting about my location. I wanted to thank everyone for the support. I felt off about this since it happened because I'm constantly trying to address my own implicit biases and have been concerned that maybe I was misjudging the situation. It's good to hear, in an odd way, that it was in fact very sketchy.